Right friends, welcome to Capsule-6. This is on external debt. You may ask what is meant by external debt. External debt is the borrowing from foreign lenders. Foreign lenders may be commercial banks or maybe foreign governments or maybe multilateral lending institutions. So, the money borrowed from foreign lenders is known as external debt. And the another important feature is it is to be paid back in the currency in which it is borrowed. If it is borrowed in dollar, then it is to be paid back in dollar currency, and if it is borrowed in euro, then it is to be paid back in euro only. And I am going to throw some light on the external debt position of our country. Total external debt by the end of March 2016 was $486 billion. $486 billion, and there was an increase of just 2.2%. And if you compare the increase of previous years, that means year prior to last year, the increase was around 6 to 9%. But the increase of March 2016 in comparison to March 2015 is just 2.2%. So, we are comfortable if you look at this point. Other important aspect is our foreign exchange reserves are record ever $360 billion. And the usual benchmark is foreign exchange reserves must be sufficient to cater for at least 10 months of imports. Our imports last year were around $380 billion. And our foreign exchange reserves $360 billion, which are sufficient, and it qualifies with the benchmark of sufficiency for 10 months of imports. So, we are comfortable from foreign exchange front also. Then our GDP is around $2 trillion, and $2 trillion means $2,000 billion. And our external debt is $486 billion. That means our external debt to GDP ratio comes to around 24%. And this is quite good in comparison to international standards. And if you look at some countries like Spain, Portugal, Lebanon, the external debt to GDP ratio is higher than 100%. So, if you look at the international benchmarks, our external debt to GDP ratio is quite comfortable at 24%. The other important aspect is out of the total external debt, dollar denominated debt is 57%. And rupee denominated debt is 29%, and special drawing rights with International Monetary Fund. International Monetary Fund has got special drawing rights, and each country can access up to some extent. And out of the total external debt, our special drawing rights constitute 6% with International Monetary Fund, and dollar denominated debt is substantial at 57%, and rupee denominated debt is 29%. And in recent times, this rupee denominated debt increased because of the floating of masala bonds. All of you are familiar with masala bonds. These are the bonds floated abroad, and the money is borrowed in rupee currency. If the money is borrowed in rupee denomination, then there is no risk of currency. Currency risk will not be there if we borrow money in rupee currency, but if we borrow money in either a dollar or euro or yen, then currency risk will be there. And to mitigate the currency risk, the borrowers have to hedge their loans. That means the borrowers has to take care of the currency risk through hedging. And major share of external debt out of $486 billion, the number one is external commercial borrowings. External commercial borrowings, that means borrowings by Indian companies abroad. That increased in recent times, and it now constitutes 37% of total external debt. And if you look at NRI deposits, they constitute 26%, and NRI deposits are part of external debt. Please don't forget. then short term trade credit constitutes 16%, right? And if you look at the positive aspects of our external debt, first and the foremost is our sovereign external debt. That means the money borrowed by the governments from abroad is known as a sovereign debt. So if you look at India, our sovereign external debt to GDP ratio is quite comfortable at just 4.6%. Then second thing is a short term debt which is maturing this year, because the short term debt is highly dangerous because short term debt matures within short period. So in addition to the interest, we are required to pay back the principal. That's why short term debt is more dangerous, and short term debt maturing this year to total debt has come down to 9-year low of 17%. And third important point is RBI has got sufficient foreign exchange reserves of $360 billion to take care of short term debt, right? So these three are the positive aspects. And if you look at the points of concern is, in due course of time, the debt taken by the Indian companies, that means the money borrowed by the Indian companies from abroad, which is known as external commercial borrowing, is increasing, and now this is almost double that of sovereign debt. That means the money taken as loan by Indian companies is almost double that of the money borrowed by Indian government. So the biggest worry is external commercial borrowing is increasing day by day. Then the second one is almost 1/6 of it is coming up for repayment during this year. That means almost 1/6 of the debt of external commercial borrowing is coming up for repayment during this year. That is another point of concern. And the third important point is 57% of the debt is dollar denominated. And the biggest problem is only 15 to 20% is hedged. Hedging is the mechanism so as to take care of currency risk. That means by hedging, the borrower will get rid of currency risk. But Indian corporates are not spending money on hedging, and only 15 to 20% of the dollar denominated debt is hedged. That is the biggest point of concern as far as external debt is concerned. So these are the plus points, these are the points of concern as far as external debt is concerned. Right friends, with this let us conclude this capsule. Please join for other capsules. Have a nice day. Thank you.